thank you so much for joining me for Tune In Tuesday. My name is Sharon Rogers and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Wells, Maine. And every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, I like to bring you a free online class. Tonight's online class features the Filled with Happiness stamp set and the Modern Oval Punch. They work together beautifully, but they can stand alone separately as well, as you will see from tonight's projects. Let's get started. Let's begin with a piece of Azure Afternoon cardstock that measures 3.5 by 4 3/4. We're going to bring in this Happy Birthday stamp. It has the bird on it. Find a block to mount that on. We're going to ink it up with the Memento Tuxedo Black. Stamp this a little bit closer to the top than bottom. That looks pretty good right there. Hold that for just a second, let that ink soak in. All right, beautiful. Now we're going to stamp again on a scrap of basic white. To have one here. Again, we're going to stamp it in the Memento. So even though this is one stamp, we're going to get two stamps. It's going to look like we've got two stamps out of it. I mean, we technically have stamped twice with it, right? But we're going to make it look like it might be two separate stamps. I'm going to bring in my Modern Oval Punch. And I'm going to punch out just that center portion. Make sure my edges are all pretty uniform. There we go. See, this is going to go right there. You never know that there's another one underneath it, would you? All right. Let's color this first. And I happen to have Azure Afternoon, although you could use some lighter blues. In fact, I think I might grab some lighter blues just to see how they look. And I'm going to take this little scrap here, and this is Balmy Blue. So this is the dark balmy and this is the light balmy. So let me see how that looks there. That's not bad because I just want this pretty subtle. So there's a couple ways to get subtleness here. See how bright that is? So what I might do is just kind of do portions of him in this light Azure Afternoon. I can show you a way to lighten it up too. But we've got this little bluebird here. And I'm going to color in. I'm going to color the whole thing except for his belly. My eyes are giving me some trouble today. Can't quite see where I'm going. All right. Ooh, that's kind of pretty. Well, I think I'm glad I chose that blue instead of the darker one. But it is still a little bright. So I'm going to lighten it up on the areas where the light might be hitting most. The top of him. I'm just taking my color lifter, and that's going to bring in some light, some shading maybe the front of his wings where it's probably going to be fatter. This looks like I went out of the line here just a little bit, so I'm going to lighten that up too. And you'll see that almost disappear. I think this wing's a little bit dark. I guess I'm coloring almost all of it, aren't I? Just till I get it the depth I want it. That's pretty good, I think. You can see a little bit of the shading on that now. Let's bring in some green for the leaves, and we want this to be fairly subtle. So I think I will bring in the darker. I'll make these almost like blueberries. They're not blueberries, because that's not how blueberries grow. I might have to keep them white just because they're already pretty dark. Let's bring in a nice subtle green. I think soft sea foam would be good. Let's see, here's the soft sea foam dark. Let's just go ahead and put just a little bit of color. Barely notice it. Oops, there's a leaf. Almost forgot. So this bullet tip end works really great. And it's okay if you get a little white still left in there. Kind of consider that the shading. I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella, and there are two ways that you can use this. You can use the Wink of Stella on the bird and maybe the leaves as well, or you can reverse that and use it on the areas outside of the bird and the leaves. Make that sparkle, almost like we've stamped on a sparkly paper. So that's what I'm going to do on this one. It's just a little bit of a different use, and I'm trying not to hit the black lines because that black might not be fully dry yet. So I'm going to try to avoid that. Make sure I've got some good Wink of Stella in the flow of this barrel. Okay, there's that, and then there's over here. So this is just something different that you can do, trying to give you some ways to think outside of the box. I first saw this from a UK demo, Matosu Crafts, so Jay did this. And I thought, oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, my Wink of Stella is really flowing now. I'm gonna stop while I'm ahead. That will evaporate and look not quite so strong. In fact, I think what I'm gonna do is blot it a little bit. Okay, there we go. And so there is our bird, and I don't know if you can see the shimmer there. There are a couple of spots that I missed right in here. I'm going to try to bring this up to the camera. It's probably not going to like the shimmer, but that does shimmer in the light very nicely. So now we're going to turn our attention to this piece right here, and I could leave it just like that, or I could emboss it. Let's see how we like that. I'm going to bring in my exposed brick 3D embossing folder. I think the exposed brick works nicely because it's like it's outside. The bird is flying outside. Let's get my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Again, it's not a big deal if you just leave it the way it is, but I think embossing it, and use whatever embossing folder you have. I happen to love this one. Remember, the fold goes through first. My folder is a little bit bent because I think at a recent class somebody may have accidentally used it sideways, which is not quite as bad as using it with the open end through first, but it still tends to warp it a little bit. That's all right. So it just puts a little bit of interest, and you can see that it doesn't interrupt the greeting itself. All right, so let's put this card together. I'll bring in my base of Azure Afternoon. And then I have a piece of basic white that measures a 1/2 inch less in each direction. So this is going to measure 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Having a little trouble talking right now, I think. Oop, I wanted to put this one down first. All right. I'm going to center that. Whoops, crash. My embossing folder plate number 4. Now, before I put this on, I'm going to bring in some sheer ribbon from the sheer ribbon combo pack. Let's see, I have 2 packages. One is open, and it has Azure Afternoon ribbon in it. Let's wrap that around this layer only. We're going to tie it in a bow. So let me get my snips out. I don't think I can tie it on it very nicely. Oh, so I'm gonna trim it first, and I'm gonna measure this so that I can type up those measurements for you. That is about 18, 19 inches. We'll see what works here. I'm gonna pull this around here, and I'm not gonna put it right. I'm not gonna make the bow stay here, but I am tying it here. And if you don't want to do a bow, you can certainly do a knot. A knot would take less ribbon. For those getting the kit for this class, you will get the amount needed to make a bow, which looks like 18 inches probably would have been fine. So let me go ahead and, to me, this bow, I can put it off to the side here. You can decide which side you want it on. Just going to put it way off to the side, right on the very, very edge. And what's going to happen is we're going to put this right here in the middle here. I think I want my bow a little bit smaller so it doesn't overpower my piece. So yeah, 18 inches would definitely have been enough. I'm going to pop this one up on dimensionals. Ooh, a brand new dimensional pack. That's exciting. And now I can't say that anymore. It's got some missing pieces. All right, so let's put my bird on the proper direction here. That looks pretty good. And now we will just adhere this down. And I'm not going to use more dimensionals because I don't want to create any more bulk than necessary. I've already raised the bird up on dimensionals, and of course there's the knot in that ribbon. Now it's a pretty thin ribbon, but still it's a knot, so we want to keep it pretty simple and pretty low. I could probably slide that over just a little bit more too. But we got glue on it now, so there we go. And we'll just stick that down, make sure it's stuck down, especially in the area of the ribbon. And there is the outside. We'll have to add this inside piece. And then what are we going to do as far as this inside piece goes? I think what I'm going to do is the same thing that I did the first time. I'm going to just use the bird. So I'm going to use another scrap of paper, stamp it, color it, and put it on the inside. And now I'm just going to turn this over and I'm gonna glue it to the inside piece. And then it'll just tie everything all together. And I'm gonna glue it to the bottom left side. And no wink of Stella this time. It's really pretty without it too. Just with it makes that extra little pop. I'll cover this up. There we go, add that to the inside. So now we've got it all together. And there is our card. We will begin with a piece of basic white cardstock that is 3 inches by 4 inches. Again, we're going to take our memento pad and ink up our stamp. This time it's the it's a good day to have a good day oranges image. I'm going to put that right in here. Try to center that as much as possible. We'll stamp that. We're going to set that aside to dry for just a moment because I'm going to color with my blends. In the meantime, we can clean our stamp. And we can turn our attention to one other piece. I have a piece of designer series paper from the Zany Zoo collection. So this is the back side of the one that has the frogs, the musical instruments. But there are a couple of different designs, but you want a design that is mostly white with black decoration. I need a piece of scrap paper in here just to protect my work surface. I'm gonna get a blending brush. Now this blending brush has some pinks on it, but I think it's mostly clean. I do believe that I got most of the ink off before. I'm gonna bring in my pumpkin pie pad and just get some ink off here. And I'm going to turn this from white with black dots to orange with black dots. And it's okay if it is not blended equally everywhere. You're just really adding some color. If you want to make one end darker than the other, you can. Remember, this most of this is going to get covered up, so you don't even have to do the middle. You can just do the edges. You just want to make sure that you get enough on the edges that are going to be seen. You don't want to suddenly have a white space because you thought it didn't go over quite as far as it will. So we're going to be putting this on here. We do want another matte, however. So we're going to bring in some pumpkin pie. Not real pumpkin pie, just pumpkin pie cardstock. I need a piece that is 4 inches. Nope. I needed a 1/4 inch larger than my image paper. So 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. Here's my 4 1/4. And here's my 3 1/4. And then we also need a pumpkin pie card base. So that's 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4, and folded in half. So what we're going to have is this kind of layering. Let me move that. This kind of layering going on. We will have some darker orange here. And we've got this bright white just popping off the page. Now we want to color this. I'm going to bring in my blends. I'm going to begin with the pumpkin pie blends. I'll start with the dark, and I'm just going to kind of go around some of these edges. Oop, I'm going to use the bullet end because these are small images. It's funny how different ends have different depths of color. I do store mine flat. I'm going to take the dark and go right around some of these edges. I'll just give it a little bit more depth. And then I'll come in with the light pumpkin pie, which seems a little darker. They dry in different tones, and I go over the whole thing. The dark areas where I'd colored previously and the white, because I want them to blend. You didn't hear what I just heard, but I just heard my cat trying to get in. And we've got some green flowers that need to happen. So I'm going to bring in, I think, let's bring in a fun, bright color, Granny Apple Green. So the leaves are fairly small. I'm going to start with the dark, I guess. Just see how that goes. And maybe I can do one part of the leaves and then come back in and do the other half with, ooh, I see some orange that I forgot to color. That is often the case when there's a bunch of stuff going on. So I'm going to come back in here, just get that part that I missed. And now I'm going to come in with the light. Let's see which one's the light. These ones look very close in their tubes. So the difference here, some of the blends are closer than others to each other. These seem to be fairly close. And then I'm going to bring in, I think, a petal pink for these little flowers here. Whoop. My petal pink is pretty bright at the moment. It's been a while since I've used it too. So I've left some white showing in there just because I think that's the way blossoms will often look. So there we have that. And we are going to attach this. Now, if you were daring and you wanted to color sort of this little arc in between, you could. Let me see. Here's one I started. Let's see how that's going to look. Let's see if I can do that. See, I kind of go out of the lines, so I don't know that I really trust myself to do this. Just to add a little bit of color. I don't think I like it. I don't think it needs it anyways. I think it takes attention away from the pop that is in this middle here. So now let's go ahead and adhere. So this set is great even if you don't have the modern oval punch, because it's got the ovals themselves in it. You don't need to punch them out, but I think they work lovely together. And when you see the card I have to end this class, you're going to think, oh, well, that modern oval punch does work well for the stamp set, but I really like it with this other thing that you're doing. So you may want it anyway. Let's put this on here. All right, and we're gonna pop this up on dimensionals. I love how that white just pops off that page. I think it looks fantastic. I just caught that my phone is yelling at me that there's low battery, so I guess I better charge it before I do the next card. Look at that just pop right there. Okay. If you want to put on some embellishments, there's a number of different ones that you could do. Let's see what we've got for options. Well, we always have these for options, and you can color them with your blends. Let me show you how to do that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've got. These ones right here, the iridescent pastel gems, you could certainly put on as well, because they do have an orangish feel. I think this one's too dark, but they do have an orangish feel to it, and it picks up a lot of different tones. But I'm going to show you how to make your rhinestones match. I've shown this once or twice before, but of course you may have forgotten. So let me remind you. So let's say I want to put 2 sparkling gems right here where those pieces are. Let's go ahead and pick this medium size here. I'm going to take the bullet end of my dark blends. I'm just going to color. Just going to add a little bit of color to these gems. It's alcohol-based ink. That's not adding too much color. Let me see if the other tip puts some more color. Oh, there we go. But you have to be very careful. Like, I wouldn't use the very tip of this. I would use a little bit further up towards the barrel, because you don't want to ruin your tip. So because they're alcohol-based, they take just a second to dry on there. And then let's go ahead and take a little spatula end of our take your pick tool. And we're going to put that on. Well, I guess we'll take the putty end. How about that? Flip over, flip over. I'm going to have to handle it. Oh, now it's stuck to me. Oh my goodness. It's so hard sometimes. And you know, things don't ever land the way you want them to land. All right, close enough. I can do my spatula there. So I put that right over the dot. And I put this right over the dot. And there I have some blinged up pieces. Now, I know generally the rule for embellishments is you want 3, but because of the way this is, you know, this is created, it only has those 2 dots there. That's kind of balanced, and that will be fine. You can break that rule of 3 there, just because, well, they did in their artwork, right? And so that is just a pretty quick and simple card. You just need to stamp something on the inside. And again, what you could do is you could stamp this and cut out that middle oval and call that good. I have my Sweet Citrus stamp set that I can bring in here. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, these are meant to be die cut, but I'm only going to pay attention to, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just use the flowers that are in here. That'll be easier for us. Of course, if you don't have this stamp set, just do something else. In fact, I'm not even going to bother with coloring this. I'm just going to put them in the corner. And they're missing a little center, but have no fear, there is the center in the stamp set. So I'll bring in a little tiny block. I'm just going to put that little orange center in all of them. There we go. And you can go ahead and put another sentiment in there if you'd like to. But this sentiment to me kind of screams like, I just want to write my friend a note. And so there's a place for a note. As I mentioned at the start, this class is free to watch. However, if you would like to receive the class kit so that you can create 2 of each of tonight's projects, simply place an order of $40 or more in my online store. You'll not only get $40 worth of fabulous Stampin' Up! Merchandise, but you'll get everything that you need to create the projects from tonight. Assuming, of course, that you have the Filled with Happiness stamp set and modern oval punch. Now I will do some of the punching for you as well as embossing, but you'll have to do the stamping on your own because Stampin' Up! Does not permit me to put stamped images in the mail for you in your kit. Let's get back to our projects. We're going to bring in one of our basic white note cards. These measure 3.5 by 5 when folded. They're 7 by 5 and not folded. They do come pre-scored. I've just cut a piece of this designer series paper. This is from the Winter Meadow designer series paper series, and it is so beautiful. But I know people are trying to think beyond winter now, and so if you have some leftover pieces, there's still some great neutrals on the back. I think this one is great all the time for sympathy cards. But if you look at the back, you've got just some neutral colors and here's some brighter blue, and here's some pretty peacock / Lost Lagoon. And then there's the one that I'm using. So there's all sorts of pretty designs. So the one that I'm using is the one that's got the trees on one side, but it's really just Lost Lagoon on the other side. And I have cut that 3.5 by 5. I want it to fill that whole front. What I'm going to do is stamp on this, but I'm going to attach it first because, well, I probably should have stamped first, but oh well, I didn't. Let's just adhere that to the front. It covers up that whole front. All right, there we go. I've brought in a piece of Lost Lagoon, which is 1 inch smaller in dimension than the card front. So it is 2.5 by 4 inches. I'm going to punch in the center of this as best I can. So if you really want to punch in the center, what you might want to do is take a pencil or a pen, and you can do it on the opposite side because that side's going to go down anyway. And so if I just find the halfway point here, which is 2.5, sorry, that is 4 inches long. So I want halfway is 3 inches, and halfway here, this is 2.5, so I need 1.25. So it's where these two lines intersect that is the center. And that might help you line things up a little bit. Some people mark on here on their punch where the center is of each edge. I'm just going to eyeball it. It's going to be close enough for me. Okay, so you're punching this out anyways. All right. So we have something that looks like that. Now I am going to put something in here, but I want to stamp first before I do anything else. I'm going to bring in the thanks. The hello miss you would work as well, but I'm going to use the thanks. So this set also works. I mean, it has some just basic greetings in addition to those other images. Let's bring in my Lost Lagoon ink pad. And I'm going to pretend that this is centered. So let's just go ahead and eyeball it, see where we would put it. And then I'm going to put this thanks right in the center of that. All right. Now for the fun, we're making a shaker card. So we need to next attach, let me see which is the right side here. I can tell by my edges because my edges need some help. We're going to attach a piece of window sheet right to this piece right here. You can do that with glue, but it takes a lot longer to set up with glue. You can just do regular tape on that if you want to. I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal Plus. That's got a nice hold to it. I'm just going to go right around here. And it doesn't have to be on the whole thing because we're just making sure that this is secure. I went over the edge there. You want to try not to touch your window sheet as much as possible because you'll get fingerprints on it. So if you're going to touch it on the edge where it's not going to be seen. So we're going to be popping this off, and I want some shaker in there. I'm going to bring in these foam adhesive strips. And they're quite long. I'm going to take one here, and I'm going to just start, and I'm going to adhere it and just wrap it right around. And I want to be fairly close to my punched image. Let's see, am I going to be able to do it with just one strip? I am. Look at that. Phew. I got a little left over. You want to make sure that there is no gap in here. I'm just going to cut that and make sure that that is pushed down solidly. Let's go ahead and push that down. Now, because my ends are, quite a ways away from this, I'm going to bring in some dimensionals and just put these over on the sides. That'll help give this lift. And there we go. Just steady those edges a bit. Now, here's the trick when you are filling a shaker card. You need to use much less than you think. And I've got this little spoon. I don't even know where I got this. It's kind of a straw spoon. I think it was made so you could eat your cereal. My kids could, and drink the milk also. I've got these little iridescent shaker circles. And I'm going to take just a little bit. See how little that is? Just a little bit. And they kind of roll a little bit. I want to make sure I'm just keeping them in the center. I might take just a tad more, even though really, you really don't want to put much in here. What I should have done was take off the adhesive backing first. Let me hold this flat so my stuff doesn't go anywhere. Take the adhesive backing off of here. Okay. And then I'm going to center this right over the top. Now, if you had wanted to, you could certainly have embellished the front of this, maybe with some stamping. But I thought there was enough going on here. Maybe we can embellish it a little bit after the fact. But now you see you have a little shaker card. And I didn't put much in there. A little bit does go a long way. So even though this looks like a little container, you do not need much. It's not even 1/4 teaspoon, I don't think. But how fun is that, right? All right, I've decided that I probably should have stamped this. So I'm going to go ahead and I've just cut another layer. And I'm just going to add some of these things right around here, going off the edges. Just adding a little interest to this, and I turn my stamp so that I don't get the image in the same direction every time. Oops, I didn't even finish stamping that one. Do I dare go over the top? Sort of. All right, and so now I happened to cut this so that it was the same size, and that my punch was pretty well centered there too. See how much better that looks all stamped? So I should have done that first. But if you don't, I'm not stuck because I'm going to just finish it now. Here's my little pretty shaker card. And let's not forget, we can take our little design here and stamp it right in the little bottom corner. And of course, we can do the same for the envelope. In fact, you could go right up the edge if you wanted to. I'm just gonna put one in the, just a little one in the corner. Sometimes I like to put it right here too, where I'm gonna address the envelope, but this is what I did this time. Fun little shaker card. I'm going to bring in the Nature's Sweetness Designer Series paper. This is beautiful neutral tones of Pebbled Path, Basic White, and Pecan Pie on one side, and then we've got some gold foil elements on another side. So pretty. And then I love this one. We're going to be using this one today. Some gold on the other side. And here's gold foil flowers. This coordinates with the a couple of stamp sets that are in the mini catalog, and they are on pages 42 and 43, so lovely and sweet. So you see some vanilla bean plants, and it also coordinates with the notes of nature. So a lot of it has just a distressed look. This has Pecan Pie and Pebbled Path words on it. I don't know that I can make out what they are, with pretty gold foil and white on the other side. And then some grid. And then these would make lovely panel cards. You could choose to color those or not. Again, this is the one that I've already shown you we're using. And I think I've shown you this one as well. It's got some words, gold words on the Pebbled Path. I'm going to bring in a punch that you probably thought was only good for the Filled with Happiness stamp set or making a label. Well, we're going to punch these words, and I'm going to line that up. There we go. And then I'm going to punch again from this beautiful paper and try to get a nice section right here. All right. And then I'm going to use it one more time for what you've probably typically used it for, and that's a label if you weren't using it for with the Filled with Happiness stamp set. Let's bring in a base of Pebbled Path cardstock. Fold that. Now on this front, it's kind of flat looking, so if I wanted to grunge it up a little bit, I could use the stamp set Notes of Nature, because it's got a kind of a grid sheet with it right here. But I don't have that stamp set. You know, there's only so many things a girl can buy. I try to buy a lot, but I didn't get that one. And so what I'm going to do is bring in an embossing folder. And I'm bringing in the Basics 3D embossing folder that looks like the crosshatch. And I'm going to feel for whichever side is bumpier, and that's this one, the back, not the one that has the Stampin' Up logo, but the other one. I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring in my Pebbled Path ink. Now, if you have a brayer, you can ink this up with a brayer and put it on there, but it also works fine because I do want a distressed look like a lot of the other pieces of this card have. I'm just going to rub that over there. Oop, I've got a cat hair on this. I'll take that off while I'm seeing it. Of course, get my fingers all inky at the same time. And now I'm going to lay my card front right on there. I'm going to take a piece of typing paper and I'm just going to rub right over the front. Try to get that ink to transfer. Now this is a pretty fine embossing folder. Now we can just rinse this in the sink. You can see, I think, you get this little grid pattern on there. So that just kind of gives some texture to that. Makes it a little bit more interesting. Now remember, this designer series paper had pecan pie in it. So I'm going to bring in a strip, a 1 inch by 5.5 inch strip. And I think this glue is almost done. I'm going to come in about 1 inch from the right-hand side, maybe a little bit more, and just adhere that to the front of my card. I'm going to take these elements and we're going to place them on here. Make sure my words are right side up. So I'm going to put them along that strip. Just a little bit of that strip is showing, but it just sort of grounds those pieces. You don't need it. Come on. And you could pop all of these up, but I was really just going to pop up the middle one. I center that on there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the top. Center that up there. Looks pretty good. Does that look upside down? Oh, I think it looks upside down. Well, we'll turn it around then. There we go. Now on this one, I'm going to bring in a sentiment. And you can bring in any sentiment you want, of course, but I don't want one that takes up the whole label. I'm going to use the Something Fancy ones because I'm making a wedding card here. I'm going to use the Nothing Fancy Just Love stamp. I'm going to ink it in the Pebbled Path again. Beautiful. This will get popped up onto that card front using dimensionals. I want it to be nice and sturdy. I'm going to use a bunch. I probably could have used half ones or the mini ones instead, but it's all right. Ooh. If you hear a scratching sound, that's my cat Crash trying to get out. Just heard his name, so he's now going to decide to stay in. And we're going to line that up with the rest. Now we need to embellish this a little bit. I'm going to bring in another punch that I think is standard for everyone. And that's the bow punch. And we're just going to be using this one. There is, by the way, a stamp set that coordinates with this. It's called Layering Leaves. And that probably would have been a good one to use for the sentiment as well, but I really wanted this one. And I'm going to bring in a piece of pecan pie, and we will put this all the way. I just want that bottom big leaf. And I'm going to do the same thing again with a piece of vellum cardstock. That vellum just gives it a really nice soft feel. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this right on here, just like that. Let's bring in some glue dots. And we'll off-center these a bit from one another. Let's see, like that. We'll bring in a piece of white baker's twine, tie a bow, fiddle with my bow ends to get them about the same size. That looks pretty good. And adhere those with a glue dot. I'm going to just stick it to the glue dot here on the knot. Pick it up and transfer it right over there. Trim my ends. Now all we need to do is decorate the inside. And so you can do a number of different things in here, but let's go ahead and just punch another leaf. You can also put a sentiment inside. I like to write a personal note on wedding cards. I should say wedding cards that I write a personal note anytime. Oh, that one's dead. Might as well open a new one. I like to write a personal note. Anyways, usually a short note. But if I'm going to a wedding of someone, that probably means there's a deeper relationship of sorts there. So I want to write a longer note. You can, of course, also put in strips of designer series paper in here. You know what? I think I'm going to put in another piece of vellum as well. Just so pretty and soft. It does get a little bit trickier though to adhere because you don't want any exposed glue. It's going to stick your card closed. I'll just fold those down, those little pieces down. Well, it looks nice just kind of with the vellum one too, doesn't it? Maybe I'll just leave it with the vellum there. I think I'm just going to leave it with the vellum. And there is pretty card. Once again, I'm so glad that you were able to join me tonight. Don't forget, if you would like the class kit, place your order in my online store by Sunday, March 17th at 9 p.m. And then I will be putting those kits together and mailing them out shortly thereafter. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.